Hey guys, so today we're going to be trying something a little different. Several times on my We Who Wrestle with God book series, I have mentioned Carl Jung, and a lot of you may not know who he is, and if you do know who he is, you may not know exactly what he taught or talked about, wrote about. And so I just want to give you a little introductory, something Carl Jung believed. We'll probably cover more of Carl Jung. I think if we're going to interact with Jordan Peterson, we should probably interact with some of the speakers that he thinks or talks about. So I'd encourage you guys to check out my We Who Wrestle with God series if you haven't. If you enjoy this type of content, subscribe for more. I'm experimenting with this ambiance. Calmed by Nature is a YouTube channel who made it. Check them out. But we're going to sit in a fall coffee shop and we're going to discuss Carl Jung. So make yourself at home, grab some coffee, and let's go over Flying Saucers by Carl Jung. And this book was not published by Carl Jung. This is a publication of his writings on UFOs a little before his death, and then someone published it after he died. So we're going to examine Carl Jung's patient's dreams about UFOs. We're going to examine some art about UFOs, or Carl Jung does in his book, and then we're going to examine the archetypes surrounding UFOs. So there are a couple of books that Carl Jung actually mentions that are mentioned in the end of this book that Carl Jung collected and read. And one of those books is The Midwich Cuckoos. And actually, funny thing, Netflix produced a series on this. So I read the book out of curiosity after I read Flying Saucers by Carl Jung. And kind of a disturbing story. So I'm going to summarize it for you. In the little town of Midwich, something mysterious happens. Everyone falls asleep. They wake up and they realize that a day has just kind of disappeared. Well, that's interesting enough, and it draws the government's attention. But interestingly enough, like, it wasn't a gas leak, it wasn't anything that they could discover that caused everyone to just miss a day. Everyone simply missed a day. And as if that weren't enough, every woman in the town of Midwich is now pregnant, mysteriously. Whether they're a virgin, whether they are young, old, married, whatever, they're pregnant. As you can imagine, this causes some issues. But the really interesting part is they all get pregnant around the same time, and they all give birth at the same time. And the children they give birth to all have one common characteristic. All of them have golden eyes. So Jung is going to treat this as sort of an archetype of the sun bearer. The golden eyes are a reference to the fact that they came from above somehow or were sent to Earth. They reflect that with their golden eyes, the sun, right? And there's some sun imagery in Gnostic talks about Jesus, and so that is a common archetype. Another common archetype dealt with in that story is that the men of the village want to kill these children. So Jesus is born of a virgin. These mysterious babies are born of a virgin. And the men of the village, much like Herod, want to kill these babies. So they're in danger. They need protection from the people who want to kill them, and the authorities provide that protection. Well, it was also discovered that during this time when everyone in the town fell asleep, a craft landed. It left marks. No one knows what it was, but they're very curious. The government's trying to figure out what's going on in this little town, and these children exhibit some remarkable abilities. For one, they start to talk very early on. They're very intelligent. They also have telekinetic abilities, and people begin to become very afraid of them. And so a cuckoo is a bird, and if you don't know, and this is another, The One That Flew the Cuckoo's Nest is another book that Jordan Peterson recommends. So a cuckoo lays its egg in another bird's nest. That bird then raises it as its own, and the cuckoo kills off all the other baby birds and pushes them out of the nest. So it's like an invasive species. So the title here, The Midwich Cuckoos, is, interesting, to say the least. So another interesting thing is Jung talks about the type of people who see UFOs most often and the times in which they're most seen. And if you don't know from every Joe Rogan episode, UFOs are most often seen during times of war. Well, that's interesting. So some people say, well, it's because aliens don't want the human race to kill itself off. They make appearances during that time to show the humans that there's something transcendental, there's something out there that is meaningful, and that war is stupid, and they, knock it off, right? So they're seen as like beings that guide humanity. And Jung would say, I don't know if that's exactly true. The other thing that Jung is going to examine is the fact that most people who see UFOs, weirdly enough, are usually people who doubt their existence, doubt the existence of God. Usually they're academic in some way, professionals. These are the types of people spotting UFOs. The exact kind of people who you wouldn't, really imagine would see UFOs. And so the question then is, are UFOs real, or are they a psychological phenomena? And that's the direction Jung's going to go. He's going to say UFOs are real in the same way that some other sightings are real. Like people see mermaids all the time. Who sees mermaids most? Men. Why do they see mermaids most? Well, maybe they're interacting with their anima in some way, or have unresolved issues with their anima. And so Jung kind of leaves it at that. It's a little disappointing. And what do we make of it? It's an open question. And Jung actually calls it the motif of our day, one that is in the making. And so you have all these different archetypes. And the archetype of our age, for whatever reason, is UFOs. And it's interesting that so many people who don't believe in God or don't believe in something transcendental, a creator, are really quite quick to believe in aliens or quite fascinated by aliens. And why is that? Well, maybe they're looking for meaning and they cannot bring themselves to look for meaning into like conventional religion or in God or in some sort of dogma. And so they look for meaning somewhere else. So that's an interesting thought. And this book really wasn't too big. If you want to read it, it's a fun read, about 120 pages. I would encourage you guys to check it out. Very, very rudimentary introduction into Jung. So if you guys enjoyed it, if you guys want more content about Jung, I've read several of his books. I have them on the bookshelf behind me. Let me know. But I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to Jung. That's someone we're going to be going over more in our We Who Wrestle with God book series. And as always, my co-creator and I will strive to bring you a variety of content. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, please consider subscribing, and I will see you soon.